The Spanish flu, it hit Calgary hard back in 1918. And if we look back in time, we can learn lessons for our future. The flu arrived in our city by train on October 2nd, 1918. It was a group of First World War soldiers coming home. Calgary's medical health officer, sort of the Dr. Dina Hinshaw of his day, was Dr. Cecil Stanley Mahood. He'd been warned that soldiers on the train were sick and whisked them off to an isolation hospital. You can still see bits of that building today, a place a lot of wedding photos get taken, the Rundle Ruins in Stampede Park. Even though those soldiers were quarantined, it was too late. The flu got out, and it spread fast. Calgarians were told to avoid crowded places, the start of what we'd call a lockdown. Officials also put a ban on, and this is a quote, promiscuous coughing and spitting. But the virus spread quickly. The first death was only 5 days after the flu arrived in town, on October 7th. Still, Calgarians were getting together in groups, congregating, and officials soon knew they needed to do something. So, schools, churches, dance halls, pool rooms, and theaters were shuttered, and people in public had to wear masks. Ignoring that could get your butt fined $1, serious money back then. The lockdown put a lot of financial pressure on people and meant hardship on many families, so hundreds volunteered to help. Soup kitchens sprang up, and many offered to help look after the sick. Temporary hospitals and soup kitchens were set up in many of the sandstone schools you still see around town. Calgary's doctors and nurses worked themselves into exhaustion, but still people died, a lot of people, including many of the nurses and volunteers. Eventually the numbers started to drop, and thinking the worst was over, the city began to reopen. A huge crowd thronged the streets on November 11th, the day the war ended. It was a celebration like no other. But it helped spur another tragedy. A second wave. The healthcare system was again overrun. The staff worked round the clock. Again, the deaths mounted. Officially, 384 Calgarians died of the Spanish flu, out of a population of about 56,000. But today, historians and epidemiologists figure that that official number is low, far too low. By the spring of 1919, the Spanish flu did mostly pass, but it wasn't over. Into the 1920s, smaller waves came back. Still more lives were lost. The Spanish flu was a terrible time in Calgary and around the world. But eventually the city recovered. Lessons had been learned. New heroes amongst doctors, nurses, and volunteers emerged. And then, memory of it receded into history. Now it's our turn to remember then, to learn now, and to recover in the future.